Hey, what's up guys? My name is Huey and welcome back to my channel. So this is the video that I've been looking forward to since the start of June, and that's because June is Pride Month. So naturally, this is going to be a video that celebrates Pride, and some of you already know what it is, some of you don't. And basically, Pride is both a celebration and a reminder of that time in the year 1969, while the LGBTQIA+ community came together and fought for their rights against discrimination, violence, prejudice, and downright oppression from people who are angry and fear us because we're different or unnatural in their eyes. And so, year after year, we hold the Pride Month to remind the community of those times. Now, going back to the video, I want to do a book recommendation that follows a theme, and that theme being is Pride. And so, all the books that I'm gonna be recommending for this video has LGBTQIA+ themes or feels, and it's gonna be great because I have about 10 of them that I want to share with you guys. So the first book that I want to recommend is Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I really recommend this book if you want to read a kind of slice of life book and the ins and outs of what it's like to be a closet case and how one would go through that. It might not teach a lot of things about the gay community, but it's a start. The second book is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. Now, this book is almost a complete opposite to the first one I recommended, because this book obviously centers around death, but strangely enough, a little bit about life as well. This also has some LGBT themes to it, since one of the main characters is bisexual, but in this story, it doesn't heavily focus on that, but it is an important part to the story as well. The third one is History Is All You Left Me, also by Adam Silvera. This story is a lot more heavy when it comes to themes because it talks about grief, mental illness, and wrong decisions that lead to consequences. It's a lot more realistic because there's no gimmick, just a story about a boy who fell in love with someone who is now gone. This book is also really good with how it describes OCD and how it plays out in the character's life. You may feel sad at some parts of this book, but it will leave a sense of acceptance and that everything will be okay. The fourth book I'm going to recommend is More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. And yes, I'm a very big fan of this author, not only because he's a good writer, but he's also an openly gay man. I guess that's why his books are so accurate in depicting LGBT characters in his books. This story is very low-key sci-fi with memory-altering technology in it, and plays a very important role in this story, and its relevance to the main character, Erin. I won't spoil too much about the gay themes in this book, but what I am gonna say is that this book will leave you happy, sad, angry, and hopeful. Trigger warning for those who do want to read it because there is a mention of self-harm, suicide, and violence in this book, so be aware when you're reading this book. Book number 5 is What If It's Us by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera. This is a book collaboration between two authors who are well known in the book community for their writing, especially about LGBT themes they go for. So this book came out last year and it gained a lot of traction for two reasons. One is because of the collaboration between these two authors, and the other is that this book is basically an ode to the Broadway musical Dear Evan Hansen and very lightly Hamilton. This book is a very happy book in general, and there's no sign of violence or things like that. The one thing about this book is that since it's an ode to Broadway, some of you might not get the references in this book because they talk about musicals a lot and pop culture within New York City. So before reading this book, it might be a good idea to learn about or listen to the songs in the two musicals, Dear Evan Hansen and Hamilton, so that you won't get a little confused while reading this book. Also, the cool thing is that the point of view for both the main characters are written separately, and if you are an avid reader of these two authors, you can tell who wrote which chapter in this book. Book number 6 is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Sáenz. This is actually the last book that I read recently, well, reread to be specific, and I really enjoyed it. I read it alongside an audiobook, which was read by one of my favorite human beings on this planet, Lin-Manuel Miranda. The story itself is very good, and you could actually finish this book in a span of the entire day. It's the kind of book you can put down and get back to, but won't get lost reading it. The 7th book is Darius the Great is Not Okay by Adib Khorram. This book doesn't explicitly feature LGBT theme, but this year in August, a sequel is coming out, no pun intended, and in that sequel, Darius actually gets a boyfriend in it, and that's why I wanted to include this, because even though it's not really about LGBT, but more so of a story about a teenage boy and goes through a journey of self-acceptance, a deep appreciation for his family, a friendship built on trust and understanding. Book number 8 is Autobiography by Christina Lauren. This is actually another collaboration between two people, but they put together their names for reasons I don't know why. That's how good the story is and how they wrote it. And the pacing of this story is pretty good because things aren't going too fast that you miss anything or too slow that you get tired of reading. It's honestly one of the good books out there that talks about a character's bisexuality, and you get to have an idea of what it's like to be, well, bisexual. The second to the last book, or the 9th book, is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. This book was such an adventure to read, and historical fiction isn't particularly my genre, but it made me more open to read books that talk about history or what it was like to live in a different time from now. And besides that, this book was also so much fun to read. As this story had said, the main character Monty is bisexual, which was at the time unacceptable to elope with, well, partners of the same sex. This book also talked about racism in a time where the term racist wasn't a thing yet, and it just fascinates me how, again, the culture was different back then, and that the book also talked about women and how they were supposed to play a certain role in nobility. Other than that, this book was such a ride. The last book that I want to recommend for this video is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This book broke me. Not like psychologically, but although at times it did, but emotionally, and it was a really, really long read. And this book is also a little harder to grasp because even though for the most part it's written in third person, there are also times the book goes into second and even first. I could be wrong on this since it's been a while since I've read it, but that's what I experienced while reading it. Now, going back to the length of this book, it does drag a bit at some parts, and it took me days to finish it. This book has themes of self-harm, sexuality, grief, trauma, love, abuse, and just life. This book will make you happy, sad, angry, confused, and at the most precise moments, despair and hope. And that wraps up this book recommendation. This was so much fun to do because I rarely ever got to talk about the books that I read, especially about the LGBT community, and this was also a good way to celebrate Pride. I hope I get to do this again, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and that's all. Thanks for watching.